everybody, and I'm back today to do a January TBR for 2019. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas, and if you don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a lovely day nonetheless. So I'm not going to be doing a December wrap up because I hardly read anything. I actually hardly read anything in 2018, which is pretty sad, but like I just didn't read. For various reasons, I just hardly read anything. So my resolutions for 2019 is just to read more, and especially to actually read the books that are on my current TBR at any given time. In saying that, I am not going to be doing a TBR for each month because, as in video for each month, because it will just depend on if I finish the books. So what I'm going to be doing is, if I don't finish the books in this current TBR, I'm just gonna finish them for the next month, and then once I've finished all the books in that current TBR and they're all done, then I'm gonna make a new TBR with new books instead of having repeated books in there. Does that make sense? Hope it does. But anyways, now on to the TBR. So the first book is, of course, Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. This book is so big. I'm so excited when this came in the mail. I was like, it's massive and I love it. I'm so excited to read it. Now technically that's on my January TBR, but I don't think I'm going to be finishing it this month. I'm going to be starting it in this month, so it's going to be on the list, but I'm going to drag it out as long as I can, but also not because I don't want to take too long reading it, but also I want to take my time with it, and I want to start reading it when I feel like reading it instead of forcing myself to read it, because it's the last book in the Dark Artifices and I'm a bit worried about what will happen, and seeing all those characters go away, it's going to be sad because I really love the Dark Artifices. They're really good. Like Cassandra Clare, she knows what to do. So yeah, I'd rather read that whenever I want to, but I will most likely start reading it in January. So the next book on the list is Words of Radiance Part 1 by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 2 in the Stormlight Archive. I read part 1s and part 2s for this series because my sister owns these books. Can't really give a brief synopsis of this because it is the second book and it's gonna spoil the first book, so if you haven't read the first book, I highly recommend it. It's high fantasy. There's 4 main perspectives. It's in a fantasy world, which is great. Brandon Sanderson is really good at world building, especially fantasy worlds. He makes it work really well. Like, the worlds are always so enriched. The characters are also amazing. I really highly recommend the Stormlight Archive series because they're just really good and the characters are really good as well. Third book on my TBR is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is book 1 of the Grisha trilogy. Now, in the past, I was never going to be reading the Grisha trilogy because before, when I read Six of Crows, I did pick up the first book, looked at the blurb, looked it up, and I just wasn't, it didn't do anything for me, so I didn't read it, and I went with Six of Crows instead, which is, if you're not familiar, it's a duology set in the same world as those books, but they're not connected. And I changed my mind after learning that Leigh Bardugo is writing another series about a character from those books, and I want to read more of Leigh Bardugo's works, and I can't read her newer book, which is called King of Scars. I don't think it's out yet, but in order for me to read that, I have to read these books. I think I'll enjoy it. I don't think it will take me too long to read it. It's only a bit over 300 words. It's only a bit over 300 pages, so I really don't think it'll take me that long to read. I know a bit too much about this series because Crooked Kingdom does spoil these books, so keep that in mind. The last book on my TBR, and I've been meaning to read this for such a long time, is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. Got that wrong. I've been meaning to read this book for such a long time. I bought it a few months ago, but this has been on my to-read list for ages, even before I bought it. I fell in love with the book from the cover, like literally, because when it came out, I saw so many people talk about it, and like the cover is just so cool. I love it. Like, it's so pretty. And it's historical fiction as well, which I don't read a lot of, and I really like that genre. And it's a bit of a romantic, like, comedy, but it's historical fiction, so I thought that's going to be quite interesting. And after reading the blurb, I really fell in love with it, and I thought this will be a very different read to what I usually read. It's going to be, like, I think the story is going to be quite interesting and different, and I like new things. I like new things in genres that I like because it just makes it all the more better. I'm excited to read it because it's going to be interesting and new, I think, and I think the main character is going to have a fun perspective and voice, because I do like when main characters aren't your usual dark and just like, oh, I hate life type voice. So I'm very excited for this witty, charismatic character. And yeah, so that is it for my TBR for January. I'm going to read all these goddamn books, except for Queen of Air and Darkness. If I don't read that, oh well, that's just whatever, because that's a special book, you know. But I hope to read all of those other 3 books because I need to read more. I love reading. Reading makes me happy. I hardly read, and I just gotta do it, you know? So yeah, please let me know in the comments of what you'll be reading for January. I hope you have a happy New Year's because it's the 31st right now. It's also extremely hot in my room. It is summer in Australia. Not fun. It is hot. I'm sweating. This will be it for today. And yes, thank you all so much for watching, and I shall see you again soon. Goodbye.